fundamental problem in education is not an educational problem at all. It is a social one. It consists in the establishment of a new and better relationship between the two great sections of society, children and adults. This is a quote from Maria Montessori. When you hear Maria Montessori's name, what comes to mind? You might think of Italy's first woman doctor. You might think of a 6-time Nobel Peace Prize nominee. More likely, you will think of early childhood education and the Montessori method. There have been plenty of TED Talks over the years about the benefit of this method, but few go into detail about the purpose behind it. What was Maria Montessori's vision? Extending far beyond the classroom, Montessori saw her work as a means to alter the very foundation of society. She had a vision of world peace made possible by children being elevated to the same level of importance and respect as adults. Hello, my name is Katelyn. Today I want to talk to you about what I will call Montessori philosophy. I am an International Baccalaureate Primary Years Program teacher. This last year at Seisen International School, I also became a Montessori student. Until recently, I had only known the name Montessori in relation to classroom materials. It wasn't until I opened up a biography about this woman's life that I came to understand the true appeal of her teachings. I'm an educator because I believe that children are the hope of the future. I'm an international school teacher because I see my third culture kids as a bridge to a more peaceful world. Maria Montessori saw this possibility in every child. I'd like to introduce you to her idea of the two poles of humanity. The one pole of humanity is the child, who Maria Montessori observed works for the sheer pleasure of an activity. The child is all about the process, not about the product. Whereas the other pole of humanity, the adult, is generally working to accomplish an external task. They are goal-oriented. Society has always been based on the needs and the wishes of the adult. Because of this, Montessori said, the progress of humanity may be compared to that of a man trying to advance on one leg instead of two. We know that an unstable foundation can lead to an unstable future. When we see a troubled adult, we often look sympathetically to his childhood to understand his actions. If we know that that unstable foundation leads to that unstable future, why does society continue to fail its children from birth? Don't get me wrong, we've made advancements. There are plenty of countries around the world that offer public education, healthcare, and protection for children. But that's only been over the last 200 years or so. For most of human history, the wishes and the rights of the child were completely ignored. That's thousands upon thousands of years of neglect. It's no wonder then that our world is as deeply troubled as it is. We have made advancements, and still there is work to do. It is estimated there are 759 million adults who are illiterate. That's more than double the population of the United States. What's more, there are an additional 72 million children right now of primary education age who are not in school. We live in a world where children are starving, exploited, abused, sold into human trafficking, and made slaves. Even a first world country like the United States has millions of children without homes, living in poverty, and going to underfunded schools. If this is the continued state of our world, then peace will truly never be more than a dream. Maria Montessori was a scientist who became an accidental educator when she was called to a hospital to work with disabled children. She developed what would later be called her method on the basis that every child, regardless of their ability, their gender, race, or socioeconomic class has an inherent dignity. She provided mixed-age classes with didactic materials that allowed each child to visibly see their learning and their next steps. She prepared an environment that encouraged mentorship and the shared use of limited resources. Her education style concerned the whole development of the child, from language and mathematics to the appreciation of other cultures and the importance of common courtesy. Montessori saw the weak foundation of our society and tried to create a more stable one by first observing the child and then taking action to support them. That is what I mean when I talk about Montessori philosophy. It's the idea that we must switch the focus of society from the sole needs of the adult to accommodate the needs of the child. What would a society that prioritizes the needs of children look like? Well, it might look something like a Montessori classroom. In public spaces, you would be able to find small sinks and toilets, little tables and chairs for their small feet to touch the ground. Real life just as we know it, and in miniature. Outside, you'd find plenty of nature and jungle gyms too. A world that prioritizes children is one in which mistakes are permitted, not punished. Children would be met at their level and develop their skills at their own pace with personalized learning plans. This is something the Finnish education system is quite famous for. In a world that prioritizes children, you would have free, equally funded schools from nursery age to higher education. Children would be provided healthy lunches at school. Their teachers would be given the time and the training they need to implement holistic curriculums and be vigilant in student safeguarding. Counselors would be given the same level of importance as teachers, and mental health given the same time of day as physical education. Close your eyes and think back to your childhood. What was your school like? Was your humanity at the core of your instruction? For far too many, the answer is still no. Education has begun to shift over the last couple decades, moving from rote memorization to more skills-based practices. Programs like the International Baccalaureate are actually quite similar to the vision Montessori had for primary through high school education. In both education styles, there is a place for student voice, choice, and agency. Trust is an integral part of the relationship between the child and the adult. Both have an emphasis on community well-being and global responsibility. In particular, Montessori saw the education of adolescents as a second period of sensitivity, one of social development, not dedicated to passing examinations, but dedicated to preparing young people for entry into our world with confidence and faith in their own abilities. As an International Baccalaureate teacher, I was delighted to discover these connections. But I had to remind myself, student-centered learning is still not the norm. Programs like the International Baccalaureate are generally found in private or well-funded schools. They help their students to become more well-rounded individuals with the goal of making the world a better place. But I worry that's not possible. And it will not be possible until every child is given that same equal opportunity for growth and development. That's why, as Maria Montessori said, the problem in education is not an educational one. It is a social one. It is a societal one. Teachers are not and cannot be the saviors of humanity. The facilitators must be every single one of us, from our local to our global community. We must advocate for children until they are always protected, their voices heard, and their needs met. That means meeting the needs of parents and guardians too. A world that prioritizes children is one in which adults make a living wage regardless of their job. It's a world in which people can take time off to care for their families, be it maternity leave or sick days, or imagine living in a world where you could take time off to celebrate milestones in your life. A world that cares for children cares for adults too. It is a world with affordable housing, food security, and public mental health resources. We can move towards this world with a conversation. It is a conversation that includes the heavy topics of racism, sexism, classism, and every other plague upon humanity that was born from the oppression of the other. Children have for far too long been othered. Why? To acknowledge the child as the other pole of humanity is to right humankind on two solid feet and begin moving forward. To begin the healing of our world. Change begins with a conversation between you and I, between the child and the adult. Thank you for listening.